Hey there, Rick Sage, recording at the Rimrock Studios in Bishop, California. Welcome to Season 2 of the Outdoor Biz Podcast, where I speak with retailers, brand managers, athletes, executives, and others in the outdoor biz and share their stories, tips, advice, productivity tricks, and ideas you can use to take your career or business to the next level. Today's episode is brought to you in part by the Something About Nothing podcast. Think the Seinfeld show meets your favorite morning show. It's a few regular folks from outside Seattle, Washington, talking around the table about sports, the news of the day, and the absurdity of life. Something About Nothing is an entertaining variety show that covers all the stuff you want to talk about but aren't supposed to. Available wherever you listen to podcasts, including Spotify. Check it out today. Just search SOMETHIN, about NOTHIN. You won't believe how fun listening to a show about nothing can be. It was great to catch up with Richard Edwards on the show today. Richard has done a lot of great work promoting ecotourism and tells us how that work really got going at a Condé Nast travel event. He talks about G-Adventures, Planetara, the Adventure Travel Conversation, and a whole lot more. Enjoy. Hey, Richard, welcome to the show.
Hey, Rick. Thanks for having me this morning.
Yeah, good to have you on. How's it going up there in Seattle? Is it a sunny day or a rainy day? What's happening?
We are headed for rain just during the Mariner game, so that's
perfect.
Par for the course, I think.
Yeah. And who are the Mariners playing today? Kansas?
Tampa Bay, I believe.
Tampa Bay, all right, cool. Yeah, that's a beautiful stadium. I love that stadium. Great food and good atmosphere. And when the roof's open, it's really special. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and new food this year, I've been informed. So I have to test a few things out. Yeah.
There you go. Got to test drive some stuff. Yeah, cool. Well, it's been a long time coming. Glad to have you on the show. I think you were exposed to this early on, I think, when we went fishing with Steve out in Utah last July or August, whenever that was, last OR show. That's when the podcast first launched.
That was early days.
Early days, yeah.
We were talking about your logo.
Right, my logo, yeah. Finally got that changed. yeah. But
here we are, yeah.
Here we are, 100 and
climbing
some,
the mountain.
Yep, 100 and some episodes. I think you're going to be 108. So anyway,
108. That's
cool.
Great.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So let's start with your first exposure to adventure travel. How'd that come about?
Maybe right after being born and raised in the Pacific Northwest. You're out in the pretty much outside. That's why people move here. That's why my parents moved here. Fishing and camping from day one. So grew up doing that, and the interest, I would say, in those activities did ebb and flow over the years, until maybe 16 when a friend of my dad's convinced me that he needed to help me build a raft to go rafting the Deschutes with him. So we used fiberglass tape on PVC and made a frame for that raft, and took it down the chutes, took it down the class 4s, made it through alive. That's looking back, that was probably not the smartest.
And did it last any other trips or just one trip?
No. We took it out. It was solid. It was really solid. Not pretty, but solid. That was fun stuff.
Yeah, cool.
But I guess when you're talking about adventure travel, like what I'm involved in now, where you pay for a package and have a guide and things like that, that would have been pretty early on. I went to Costa Rica the first time when I was only 18 or 19. Not too long after that, I bought the first real gift I ever bought for my mom, aside from flowers and things like that. And that was a few days in Tortuguero out on the Caribbean coast of Costa Rica to see the sea turtles hatch. And we were lucky enough to have that moment happen. It was amazing. And that'll get the fever going.
Yeah, that'll get the bug in you. Yeah, I'll bet.
Yeah, it will, and it did. So,
and you've been back to Costa Rica a bunch, right? I mean, you lived down there for a while. Is that right? Costa Rica, is that where you lived?
I lived there for 12 years straight.
Yeah,
and actually didn't leave the borders of the country for 5 years.
Wow.
Really immersed there. Yeah, just working and being a Costa Rican for a long time. My wife and I have a condo there, and we're there when we're not somewhere else.
Yeah. when you're not in Seattle. And you have a boat in Seattle still?
That's our kind of our only real base. The kids are here in Seattle, both of them, and settled in downtown and are kind of Seattle hipsters. and so the boat is our little launch pad for being in Seattle and sitting in one of the marinas. It's
nice,
small but big enough to be on.
Can you take it out in the Sound? Is it big enough to go cruise around the Sound? And
yeah, it's biggish.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I think if you live in Seattle, a boat is kind of a must-have. I lived there for a couple of years, and there's just so much water and so much to do on the water. It's just got to be a fun thing.
It is, and the skyline is so beautiful from out there. The views are amazing, and all the lake real estate you have available. It's nothing like it.
Yeah, and you can get to so many places, right? There's so many little connected waterways, and it's awesome. Yeah, very cool.
Just pull up to the restaurant and
have lunch.
Yeah, that's right.
So you've been in adventure travel, like you say, since you were a youngster. So it seems like you've been everywhere. Do you still have a couple of interesting places on your bucket list? I'm sure you do.
I've had a, I guess, not normal approach to that. I've never had a bucket list.
Oh, okay.
Or if I had a bucket list, it really consisted of one thing, and that was to see the mountain gorillas in Uganda or Rwanda.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to do that. That was always sitting out there, something I wanted to do. And that did that a few years ago with volcano safaris. It was amazing. Having a young juvenile female brush my pant leg with her hand as she went by because she was curious. That's what else can you do after that?
Man, that's got to send shivers up your spine, right? That's got to be just so moving. Wow.
It was, and so that was a good time to not have a bucket list because you've kind of had what you think is going to be maybe your top travel experience ever. If you're trying to top that, then that would be a tough goal to have, and I never really have had that. I've just been lucky enough to be invited different really interesting places. We just got back from 3 months in Europe and Croatia and Italy and Spain and Greece, and there are so many. I'd love to see more of the Balkans and probably see a little bit more of Asia, but it all really happens really naturally, and that's the way I like it. Just there's a reason for me to be there. It's not just that I'm going there to for some kind of reason that I don't really
check
understand
some box.
yet.
I like that.
Check some box.
Yeah, I've done the same thing. It's kind of been, I've been fortunate to be invited to all these great trips throughout the years too, and that's really how I've done most of my stuff around the world. It wasn't that I have to go here. Antarctica was on my list, I think. I really wanted to go there, and I'd love to go back there, but there was really just kind of happened, hey, we're going to go do a trek in the Caucasus. Want to come? Sure. I like that.
and that was just the best, right? I mean,
oh my God, amazing.
It feels good. And
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think those kind of things, when you get invited from somebody, there's a personal connection there with the friends and the group, right? Whereas if you just you go somewhere to check the scene off the list, then that's more of a I don't know. It doesn't sound fun. Well, I like that.
It can be. It can be, I guess, but I just have never done that. And I guess if I was going to do it, it would be what you just mentioned, Antarctica, because I've been to all the other 6 continents multiple times actually, never been to Antarctica. So if I ever feel the need to tick a box, I guess that would be it. But there's no burning desire at this moment. So we'll see.
Yeah, it was a photography thing for me. It really wasn't a burning desire to get on the ice. So that was had to go take those photos. Now that the photos, it's been so many years, I got to go take them again. So, and you've had a lot of great accomplishments in promoting ecotourism. Tell us about some of those. How'd you get started thinking about ecotourism and adventure industry as a whole?
I was already in it. I started many years ago when I was in Costa Rica.
Did you start when you were Did you start when you were a youngster, or after college, or how did that? Back up a bit.
Somewhere in between.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I was working as an economist for the Organization of American States in Costa Rica,
Mm-hmm.
and it just was not. The pace wasn't there for me personally.
Mm-hmm.
And one day I answered an ad for sales manager of one of the prestigious or long-standing ecotourism outfits that in the place Costa Rica, where a lot of people really credit that country with being one of the pioneers in the space.
Mm-hmm.
And they gave me the job for some reason. And I was still young, in my late 20s, I believe, and so that was kind of where it started. But I moved around a little bit, had a couple different jobs. Was back up here in Seattle for a few years, working for another small company, and but because I was lucky enough to be in those companies that did have a very eco focus, I was also exposed to ecotourism development by international organizations, and I really saw that there was a flawed model there. There was something that they were doing. They were leaving the private sector out of the whole equation. Millions of dollars was going into trying to help third world or developing countries be involved in tourism, but for some reason the model didn't include having operators and the people that sell travel involved from the very beginning. So these
did they just miss that? Did they just slip their mind, or was it a conscious decision? That seemed very odd.
I just think that they were thinking that it seems very odd, and I think people just got headed in a direction, and it just was not quite the right direction, and that was the way it was done. It's basically what it was, and it was Washington based, and it's hard to move political things a little bit more than it is private sector, obviously. So you'd have all these projects, and it was a build it and they will come kind of a scenario where people that really aren't involved in selling travel to travelers are building out these lodges and products, but they haven't asked anyone who sells it if that's if anyone's going to buy it.
Is that what they want? Interesting. Yeah.
So I really was very frustrated. I can kind of chuckle about it now, but I would get red in the face thinking about it back then. And just all the money that was going to waste and all the effort that was going to waste. And one evening at a Condé Nast Traveler, which is a upscale travel magazine most people probably heard of, event, I was lucky enough to meet Bruce Poon-Tip, the founder of G Adventures, and we were at this glamorous after party. We were standing feet away from LL Cool J, and we were the only two people that weren't really drinking tons of alcohol. So we were having a great chat about all things ecotourism. And he, at that point, was really looking to build up his nonprofit that he'd started called Planetara. It was just basically an infant and hadn't really decided where he wanted to go with it. And I had this idea that if you brought private sector into development from the very beginning, then you could really make a difference in people's lives. And I always thought I'd have to find a bunch of small companies to help me do that. But what about having the guy who has the biggest adventure travel company standing right in front of me? It's like having a lot of small companies and one single guy.
Yeah, right.
And so we had a real meeting of the minds, and that's where Planetara was really born. And it continues to do excellent work in that area where projects are developed in collaboration with the product development department at G Adventures. And then as soon as that project is ready, it has travelers. Amazing.
Boom.
Isn't that
what a concept? Right.
Boom.
Yeah, you have customers. Hey, wow.
Yeah. Instead of just the opposite.
Right.
So it's a very, very slick model.
That's awesome. Yeah, because then you don't have to sell it, right? People desire to go. There's no sales involved. They just want to check it out. I mean, you got to expose them to it. You got to let them know it's there. But
if you have arguably the best marketing machine in adventure travel behind it, that's really not a challenge.
Yeah, right. Telling them about it is the easy part with those guys. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. But that was missing in the whole previous 15 years. And it still is missing. Most tourism development by international development agencies still falls in the old model, but it's starting to move in a different direction.
Mm-hmm. Is it changing, would you say, quickly, or it's a snail's pace still? You got to kick it and scream, and they're slowly changing.
It was slow, and I think it's picking up steam. I really think it's picking up steam, and I can probably think of a couple examples in that direction.
And are people, what's driving that picking up steam? It's just the success of it, or are people slowly shifting their mindset?
Yeah, I mean, people do look to G Adventures as, everyone feels they're competing with them to some degree, I think. It's not generally upscale travel, so maybe some of the upscale adventure travel companies think they aren't, but they actually are.
Yeah, right.
And they've always been pretty innovative, and other companies, big companies, are starting to do the same thing. So that will move the whole industry in that direction. I don't know that everyone is quite following the model the way I would hope, at least, but someday when I'm the king of the world, then I'll change that.
There you go. Well, it'll continue to change and evolve, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Let me know when you get that king of the world thing. I want to.
Yeah,
we'll have you back
know.
on the show. That'd be funny. So I know you've also done a lot of work with the Adventure Travel Conservation Fund, getting that off the ground. I've had Steve Barker on the show and Soraya Shattuck on the show. How's that going? You guys hit the ground running. It's amazing. Yeah,
that was really get a little tingle thinking about how fast that got going. Basically the day we launched it, we had about 40 members, industry members.
Yeah, I was in
jumped
the room.
right on.
Right, that was amazing.
Yeah,
that was impressive.
And I think we're up to 80 or more now.
Great.
And Steve and Soraya did cover nicely what the ATCF is. I would say it's from the little anecdote I just laid out there. You can see why I would be really excited about this. I was actually involved in the very early stages of it. With Steve and I were in Shannon Stoles, the head of the ATTA's ear from the very beginning, that this, that we needed to do this. And I think what I brought to it was this idea that I was as excited as I was and am about everything that Planetara and G Adventures does through that model. I knew that real big change would only happen when the whole industry was doing the same thing, when the whole industry was contributing to projects and then bringing their clients to those projects once they were ready for tourists. That's the way the whole thing really can move the needle in the biggest way possible, and that's the groundwork we're laying with ATCF, where with lots of operators involved, lots of big name operators and sellers of adventure travel, and lucky enough to have the outdoor gear industry involved in using their big voice.
Right.
Couldn't be a better situation, frankly.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's interesting how linked the outdoor gear industry and adventure travel are. It's funny, there's been I've talked to a number of folks over the years, various potential projects and stuff about, how do we get the outdoor guys to sell more to the adventure travel world, because it's so linked. And I think it's almost it's a challenge, but I think in a lot of ways it's a natural connection. So it's really, you just have to do more of what you're doing. I mean, I haven't explored it in quite a while, but it's great that those guys are all jumping on board and supporting you.
They are in that way.
Yeah. On the conservation. Well, I think a lot of folks realize that is their customer in a lot of ways too, the consumer. It's all outdoor stuff. It's you don't use it. You don't have an adventure travel jacket.
Yeah, that's right. If you look at every traveler on our trip, they are equipped with the brands that are either involved in what we're doing or So I think everyone has always seen that link, but big moves toward really creating the synergy. I guess I'll throw the jargon out there.
Yeah.
It hasn't been there yet.
Right.
So I think it's there. I think it has yet to be, the full power of it has yet to be figured out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's tough to create that as a retail component. And, retailers are challenged, as we know, 8 ways from Sunday these days. But, trying to create that adventure travel piece in addition to all the other things you're doing just seems to be, it always falls by the wayside. But anyway,
it seems easy. It seems easier online, though. So
you would
maybe
think.
as things move more online, the integration will be a little easier and more obvious. But
no, it's surprising.
I don't have those answers.
No, I know, and it's surprising that a lot of folks online, like REI, hasn't really, started driving that message home for adventure travel. But they're getting there. They're getting closer. Yeah.
Yep. I think everybody is thinking about it.
Yeah, they're talking about it. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. And so for listeners who don't know, talk to us a little bit about the Meat Network. I'm sorry to say I don't know much about that.
Yeah. So, and you shouldn't quite yet.
Okay.
That's just fine. That's what I was doing in Europe.
Okay, got you.
So this is basically Mediterranean ecotourism. So when you think of the countries of the Mediterranean, you don't really think of ecotourism too much. When you're thinking of Italy and Spain and Greece, you're thinking of sun and food and cities and archaeology, but you're not thinking of being out in nature. And all of those countries, some other ones that are involved in this more recently, like Albania and Croatia, they have amazing natural heritage.
I'll bet, yeah.
And when people think about, adventure travelers think about visiting those countries, they're always talking to me about how they can get out in the countryside, how they can meet local people, how they can, have a more Italy experience than Rome and Venice.
Right.
And that's what this is. This is actually EU funded. So here we are with a project that I think was done pretty right. That's funded by government. And what they did was they got the parks involved. So the parks in each of these countries are really driving this whole initiative and are collaborating with local tour operators to create ecotourism in natural areas that has real conservation involved, that is vetted by the parks, but also has, amazing adventure activities and experiences. And then now you're just competing with every other adventure destination, but what it has that nobody else has is the food, the wine,
yeah,
and that culture thrown on top.
The people, and
the people. I mean, So the combination is super exciting. I admit I never thought of ecotourism in that area. Maybe Croatia, but not Italy, Spain. You just don't think that much about it.
Right.
And so being involved in this with my good colleague Jeremy Sampson, and he's based in Malaga for the moment to get this off the ground.
Very cool.
And our new company called BookGreen.travel will be responsible for marketing these trips. So super excited about that, and super excited about spending more time in Europe and eating more food.
Yeah, right. Great food. That's kind of how our Caucasus trek went down. We went over there and trekked through, I'm going to blow the name of the park, but I'm thinking it was Tasheti National Park, and, trekked along the Caucasus through there, and then ended up at the headquarters and got to learn about all the, the activity going on to create the park and keep the park going and all that. And then we got to spend time with the locals and eat the local food, and it was just fabulous. It was amazing.
It is amazing, and really not on the radar, especially in North America.
Right.
I think some locals know about it. Not even a huge percentage of them. There is some tourism in this kind of area over there, but there's just so much potential to also all the talk about so much stress on certain places like Barcelona and other cities, Venice. this is a way to disperse the crowds in a really positive way and have more people, more locals benefit, more local communities benefit. Cultural heritage can be preserved because that's what people want to see when they're out in the more outlying areas. So people will have they'll have an incentive to keep all that going. So this is just taking that same model and using it for good. Which
great idea. Great idea.
Pretty exciting.
So many places that you can add to the adventure travel lists. I mean, geez, the backcountries of all these places are, some of them like the Caucasus, almost unseen. I mean, we saw, I don't know, maybe 3 other groups and none from the U.S. It doesn't get the visits that the high profile places get. So yeah, that's great. Cool. We'll have to keep an eye on that. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's going to be fun.
Yeah, we'll link to that.
It already is fun.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's going to be more fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you spent some time with Uncruise. They do some pretty cool trips. Tell us a little bit about those guys.
Spent 2 years. I'm about 100 yards away from Uncruise at the moment.
Right.
That's the boat at this moment. And Uncruise is really, I have a pretty staunch attitude against big cruise, frankly. I really feel like it does more harm than good.
It does.
And
Shannon Stoll was on the Waypoint Adventure Travel episode a few months ago now, talking about how some of the horrific things that go on from the big cruise world. It's just sickening to some point.
It is, and even though some companies are trying to be more responsible and taking some bigger steps, it's still, when you're standing on the dock, Uncruise is really focused on Alaska. It has some other great destinations where it takes small expedition ships and takes travelers to see the small corners that you don't see in a big cruise. And so if you're standing there on the dock in Juneau and you see one of those cruise ships comes in, the whole and people just pour off, thousands of people just pour off and go into the town. The whole, the town just changes. It's a different place. That you're not preserving anything. And what are you really leaving behind? Maybe a few shop owners are making some money, but they just get back on the ship and off they go. It's not as I'm sure Shannon talked about, it just doesn't leave money or, benefit to the local community.
Well, it's like hordes of locusts just descend on these towns and eat and buy all the stupid little tchotchkes and then go away, and everybody's just waiting for that next boat filled with hordes of locusts that are going to come back and do the same thing.
Who are not experiencing the place in any way, shape, or form how it really is, because there's too many of them, and so they've totally changed it just by being there. Yeah. Where Uncruise has a different model. Their ships are 22 to 88 passengers. Their giant ships are in the 80s. And so when they go somewhere, they're not overwhelming the place. The ships are really comfortable and they're very activity oriented. You're going to be kayaking and hiking and doing the things you would do on an adventure travel trip, but you're getting way back where other people can't get, because those smaller ships can that look like lifeboats next to the big cruise ships, actually.
Yeah, Dan Blanchard.
Even though when you're standing next to one.
Yep. Dan Blanchard was on the show a few episodes ago telling us about all the other activity stuff that they do, which is pretty cool. Dan would be able to list those off quickly because he's doing them all the time. But paddle boarding and all kinds of things that happen and cultural interaction that you can have when you're that small of a group that you just can't in a cruise situation where it's just basically an auditorium watching someone maybe perform some cultural dance that they're not too excited about performing and things like that. Some comic that you see.
They do some good work, and excited about them getting down to Costa Rica and Panama the last year or so, and our company Green Spot Travel has been selling those trips. So we're we're still involved. Had a
Good.
fun couple of years rebranding Uncruise. That was my mission there, is get them a little bit updated on the marketing side and get a great brand out there that really represented what they're doing, and had a great team to work with. That's a lot of greats.
Yeah,
but it
good.
was
Yeah.
fun and mission accomplished. And so I'm back out there now doing my usual portfolio of not knowing what I'm doing all the time.
We're all doing that. What's Steve say? MSU, we're all making stuff up.
Making stuff up.
Yeah, that's right. That's stuff up, yeah. So how do you think adventure travel is going to evolve in the next 5 to 10, or continue to evolve? You think it's going to continue to go down some of these new paths, or, I mean, hopefully the cruise world shifts gears. I don't see that changing anytime soon, but what are your thoughts on that?
I have one primary thought, and actually Shannon, that we've been talking about quite a bit here.
Shannon Stoll, he was on the show as well weeks ago.
Yeah. So he asked me about this just last week, and I had an answer ready for him. I think it's slow travel. So a lot of people were trying to push that as kind of a genre, experiential travel, adventure travel, sustainable travel. You've got all these terms that mean very little to most people, and don't always describe what the trip really is.
Right.
But one of those that people were putting out there was slow travel, and I wouldn't want to be the one trying to brand that or anything. But I do feel that is the direction things are going to go and should go, where people go, they're looking for deeper, more meaningful experiences. So I really feel like the only way to have those is to stay a little longer and get to know people.
Yeah.
And
go where the people are, right? Get off the beaten path. Go in the backcountry.
Get off the beaten path and create some friendships. And that's really what we've been able to do in Europe, where we go somewhere for 2 weeks at a time, or even 3 weeks. We were on one small island in Greece called Karpathos for almost 3 weeks this year. And, you create lifelong relationships that way. And what a vastly superior experience to going for 6 days, 5 nights, and and rushing around a country and seeing 4 different places in those 6 days. Right. So, everything that people are pointing toward with transformational travel and some of these other terms that are floating around, really, to me, all point to one thing, and that's just staying put a little longer. And that's more environmentally friendly as well. Right. That's fewer flights, and usually less transportation, and finding, and the way to do that is alternative transportation. So you're riding your bike, you're hiking, you're getting around that way instead of being jetted around in small plane flights and vans all the time. And those are all, if you're a busy person and you have a week, then please go do that, as opposed to going and flying and flopping on a beach. Yeah. But, as people kind of progress in their adventuring, I think that's where they're going to go. It's longer.
Slow travel, I like that. And use the slowest methods possible to get around. That's
yeah. That's how you have contact, and keep your phone in your pocket.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Don't take your phone, right? Leave it back at wherever you leave your gear or something.
Yeah.
That's
Get
cool.
a decent camera. So you have a camera, but
that's the challenge with the phone these days, right? The phones are pretty dang good. The iPhone, anyway, is pretty darn good camera. So
it is. My 8 people just marvel at the pictures. So it's a tough one for me. I would say anybody that knows me would say I have a problem with the phone.
We all do.
And so I'm really looking at ways to try to limit that too. And I think that part of that talks about relying on a camera that actually does have a better camera than the iPhone, as good as that one is.
Yeah. You can get some good ones. Sony's doing some cool stuff. Yeah. How about opportunities? Do you see any opportunities for young folks just starting out in adventure travel?
Lots of them. Yeah. I actually think it's right now is probably one of the best and easiest times for people to get involved in adventure travel. The reliance on social media, on content that is driving the marketing, gives younger folks with maybe not full formal education, maybe they don't even have a college degree. My own son is making it that way. He doesn't have a bachelor's degree, but he's great at video, and
he's quite the videographer,
some of the other content,
and the editor, and all that. He's pretty impressive skills.
He's coming right along,
yeah.
And there are a lot of folks out there that are a lot of, I say kids, they're not kids, they're in their 20s, and they're doing great stuff, and I think, and some of them are writers and some of them are visual people, but that is a great way to get your foot in the door. And it also does for you what it did for me 20 years ago. I understood online marketing and to a certain extent, and and the things that I didn't understand, I stayed up late at night trying to figure out. And I think that's what a lot of young career professionals that are looking to get into adventure travel are doing now, is they're staying up late figuring video and content marketing out, the same way I was looking at SEO and some of the other things at that time.
Right.
And what it allows you to do is it gives you exposure to the whole business, really. You have to if you're developing content, you have to understand the operations of the business. You have to understand how trips work. You get out there, you see all the ins and outs of it, the good and the bad, and that gives you great exposure. And then maybe you find out that you are better suited for the operational side, as some people do. And maybe you want to be out in the field. Maybe you want to be a guide, or a logistical person. And so I see people move around. And it's always been a pretty, I would say, relatively easy business to get in if you are willing to accept the trade-off of lower pay than you could probably get doing something else for basically having your travel financed for you.
Well, we didn't get into either of these businesses, outdoor or adventure travel, for the money. I don't think it was the love.
That is right.
Yeah, the love and passion for the activity is what drives it.
Yeah, I think to a certain extent, though, the difference in salary is being made up by the travel that you would have been saving up for in another job. So, I mean, that's not fully true probably, but I think it's pretty close.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You get to have a lot more experiences, through your job that you would be paying for if you were a banker or a lawyer or whatever. So, yeah.
Right.
That's good. And so, sorry, go ahead.
No, that I just was agreeing.
Oh,
that is right.
Cool. So do you have any suggestions or advice, maybe some specifics for folks wanting to either grow their career or get in? I mean, do they just ring somebody up and say, hey, what can I do? What kind of things should they be doing?
Yes, that you hit it on the head. It's figuring out what they can offer the industry, and figuring out who might need that kind of help. And I think the employment ads for adventure travel are always pretty robust. There are always several opportunities on the Adventure Travel Trade Association website for young people that are looking, without too much experience, a couple of years maybe of experience in marketing or writing, and I really do feel like that's pretty simple. I would say when I'm looking at hiring somebody, I'm really looking at the quality of the previous work. I don't care so much what the subject matter of that work is. It's really that someone put the time and the heart and the passion in. You can feel that the work done was accomplishing the goal that they were looking to do. So I wouldn't feel that I've regularly hired people from other industries to come into adventure travel that had the right skills, because it's not hard to believe someone when they say they're they love to travel. Everybody does.
Loves to travel, right? Yeah.
Yeah, just about everybody does. So it's
Yeah.
that one's pretty easy. It's not really a requisite because everyone's in the same boat. So, I would say just show quality. That's as best you can.
I like it. Yeah, no, that's good. And let's shift gears a little bit as we wrap up here. What are some of your what are some of the outdoor activities you participate in? I know have you fly fished since we fly fished?
No, I haven't. I know, and another podcast could be your critique of my first fly fishing endeavor. That would I probably wouldn't want to listen to that, but
I remember you did pretty well. You did like everybody does. I mean, it's not an easy skill to learn, so I think everybody struggles. Yeah, it's tricky. No. It's tricky.
I caught something.
Yeah, you caught fish, so you're ahead of most. Yeah.
Anyway, that was fun. So since then, I've probably been, snorkeling half a dozen times in different countries, kayaking in about that many countries, hiking in more than that. I know that I've been in 3 caves in 3 countries in the last 2 months. So just what, like we were talking about earlier, just whatever presents itself. I don't really have I'm sitting here staring at my mountain bike that I really like, and I was on it yesterday, but I would be lying if I said I was a mountain bike enthusiast. And, so it's just a variety of things that I have a chance to do that I don't feel bad that I'm not fully dedicated to one hobby, because I just like to do the activities that present themselves in all these travels and take full advantage of that, and that I'm really lucky to be able to do all that.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I do.
Yeah. No, and I think that's one of the trends I think that's going on in the outdoor recreation world, is people are they're not looking necessarily to be experts at everything. They want to do more of everything available. They might pick a couple that they do, religiously, but most of the time, most people just want to go do whatever it is there to do. I'm going to go do it.
I will not jump out of anything. I've drawn the line there.
I am in the same place you are. I am not jumping out of a perfectly good airplane or off a perfectly good bridge. Sorry. Not going to happen. Yeah.
Right.
And how about books? Do you give books as gifts very often, or what are some of your favorite books?
I point people to a couple different kinds of books.
Okay.
I do like to, just when people are struggling a little bit, try to point them to something like a book that I discovered a long time ago called Now Discover Your Strengths. I'm a strengthen your strength kind of a guy. I really feel like spending lots of time trying to shore up your, the weakest parts of your game professionally or any other way. It's not the way to progress career wise, I would say, for most people. And I don't think people spend quite enough time looking at what they're really good at and trying to be the best at that.
Yeah,
because
like that. Yeah.
That's usually what you're passionate about too. So then that's usually what makes you happy. And so it all leads in a really good direction. And so that book is old and it's probably not PC anymore. Haven't read it for a while, but I would say there's a version of it that's out there that would talk to you about just how to really do you.
I like that.
Probably from Oprah.
Yeah, I like that, because it seems like we're too busy. At least my generation has been too busy chasing roles, right? Whether that role fits you or not is, not the thing we focus on. It's like, I want to go be that. I want to go be that guy. Well, that guy might not, you might not have the chutzpah or the skills or whatever. Go do what you're good at. That's great advice. I love that. I want to check that out.
And then probably the other genre that I spend the most time with is that historical fiction or maybe not fiction, but the kind of the historical novel. I really like those. One that always stands out is a book called Blue Latitudes, which is about a guy following Captain Cook in his journey. Yeah, and that's Tony Horowitz, and he did really good work on that. And I feel that kind of epitomizes that genre. And I've read several books like that. And my sister's really good at giving me those for birthdays. So
yeah, cool.
We'll stay moving on those, and those fit with the kind of the travel theme too. Just thinking about new ways to travel and new ways to have more insight when you're traveling.
Mm-hmm. I like it. Well, we'll link to those in the show notes for sure. So we talked a little bit about our phone addictions. Do you have any tools you use to stay motivated or productive or sane? Any apps or do you meditate? Any of that kind of stuff?
Well, I don't know if I would recommend them. It's mine. I recommend this one. My tool is I take breaks. So if you look back at my career, I spent 4 years here, and then I consulted for a few years, and I spent 3 years here, and then I consulted for a few years, and then lately 2 years at Uncruise, and I really felt like I needed to get back working in my own businesses and have more of a variety. Mm-hmm. And that's how I keep myself from burning out. I think that would have been the death of a career, I don't know how many years ago, because people felt like you needed to stay in the same place. Mm-hmm. But now that is not so much of an issue, I probably move around more than the average. Mm-hmm. But
well, I know you're talking to the move around king, so I don't know. I've been accused. I've been accused of jumping ship too much, but I'm the same way, right? I want to go do something different. It's about job experiences as it is adventure travel experiences too. I think. And
life experiences and job experiences should be the same thing, right?
Right.
That's the way I feel. Yeah, so when there's something interesting, I want to go do it. If I really consciously try not to leave anyone hanging on things, mm-hmm. but I do want to get, do what is going to be the most interesting, exciting, and hopefully impactful thing whenever mm-hmm. I'm looking around.
I like it. That's good. And anything else you'd like to ask of our audience or say to our listeners as we wrap up?
Ask of the audience. I'd go back to what I was asked, and where do you see adventure travel going? I'm, as we said, I have not been appointed king of the world and will not be. And so my take on it, that slow travel is where we're going. And it's a really interesting question for everybody. It guides marketing, it guides product development. It has so much to do with even the other subject of us interacting with the adventure travel industry, interacting with the outdoor gear industry. Mm-hmm. If we can kind of decipher, anticipate, and we haven't been very good at it, the industry's been very reactive. Yeah. If we could start thinking about where it's going, I bet we can do a lot better job meeting those expectations. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I think it would benefit all of us if we were sharing that information. So where do you think it's going?
I love it. Where do you think it's going, folks? You can drop us a note in the show notes. I agree with you. I think we've gotten too focused on the quarterly number, if you will, right? And it's just about hitting the mark. And we've lost sight of some of the things that got us where we are today, the slow down and focus on the end product and the end result. And I love it. It's perfect. It's a great ask. Where do you think it's going?
Look forward to hearing what people have to say.
Yeah, and if people want to follow up with you, how can they reach out to you?
Well, as we've been talking about, even my family doesn't know where I am on a given day. So it's easiest to look at, I'm at Green Travel Guy. All my socials are at Green Travel Guy. And that covers Green Spot Travel, our adventure travel business. We're in Costa Rica because that's where that business is focused, and as well as Iceland. Okay. And then, so you'll be able to easily find me and see if I'm in Europe, Seattle, upstate New York, or Costa Rica, or somewhere else.
And socials, you're on Instagram, Facebook,
Twitter.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Cool. Well, we'll link to all those, and people can reach out answer your question or ask a question. If you want to comment in the notes or comment on any of the Outdoor Biz socials on where do you think it's going, that'd be great. We'd love to hear from you. Richard, it's been great. Thanks. This is awesome.
Thank you so much, Rick. That was a fun conversation.
Yeah,
good way to spend a morning.
Exactly. Well, enjoy the Mariner game, and I hope to catch up with you soon somewhere. If you're ever down in Surf City, California, give a holler. I get to Seattle every now and again. My sister's up there now, so I'll look you up if you happen to be around.
You know it.
All
See
right.
you soon.
Thanks. All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Richard Edwards. Be sure to hit Richard and I up on the socials and give us your thoughts on slow travel and where you think that is going. You can catch up with Richard on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, where he is @GreenTravelGuy. You'll find links to everything we discussed in the show notes at theoutdoorbizpodcast.com/episode 108. Be sure to hit your favorite podcast app and subscribe today. Thanks for listening. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. I've used Audible for many years now. I'm on the road a lot, and Audible allows me to enjoy the great books I discover or are recommended by friends. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/theoutdoorbizpodcast. There are over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Start your 30-day free trial with Audible today. If you want more of the Outdoor Biz Podcast, you can subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcast. Be sure and go to theoutdoorbizpodcast.com where you'll find all the episodes, show notes, and much, much more. Thanks for listening, and until next time, be sure to make time to get outside.